Okay, part two. So we saw in the first one a lot of long-term care, some um, dehydration, fracture. So we're going to go now with the second part of my kit, which is mainly so I got more rehydration salt for that kit. Um, I also now more in the wound care. So as I talked in the past, is that I carry a kit initially on the top of my kit that has a tourniquet, but being in the wilderness sometime, and there's some literature that support that you may need a second tourniquet if it's bleeding too much or it's bleeding below or it's not cutting enough, or you may have two injuries or two victims. And so what I carry is an extra tourniquet, and actually I carry a third one because again, if it would be my PFD, I carry a third one on me at all time. So I got another tourniquet inside the kit. Same thing that, and this is actually like the official cat tourniquet, um, and yeah, so those are the officials one. And actually, let me show you. So this one I think I bought it on Amazon and everything, and it's not like again, it's a kit on ETC, so I don't carry much and stuff. This is the real cat stuff, the real thing. Look at the difference. Like when they say that not all tourniquets are made equal, look at the difference in the size of the um, device here to winch them. I don't know if you can see that, but it's way different in the size. And just even holding them in my hands, like you can totally see like how this is way more strong, and even like for example on the side here, how it's not like this is way bigger and stuff. So this is the real thing. This is kind of a knockoff, but I would be using it in a situation that not that help is coming and everything. Versus this one, I need to depend a little bit more. So usually I put things of a little bit of less value because I mean at one point you have to have like money that you spend, right? So this one is in my wilderness kit. So I just wanted to mention that I have that kit and good difference in there. Another thing too, and people that knows me and follow my channel and other channel know that I don't believe in suturing, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have something, especially like in the environment where I work when I play in kayaking. Seawater can be very detrimental, especially for some wounds. And depending where you cut yourself and things like that, you want to have that close, but not fully closed, because if infection gets closed in, um, you want to be able to express. So I don't want to get too much into but I carry a staple. Those ones are great because as you can see, as for size format, they're big ones that you see could fit in there, but I really like those little ones. Um, this one is for 5 staple. I think there's little ones like this too from 10 to 15, but I like the size of them. They're very small. They're very easy to carry. And if you're gonna carry this, obviously have the tool also to remove the staple, which I have in one of my kit. But yeah, the smaller ones I like them better than the big ones, uh, especially for wilderness kits like this. So staples. Um, One thing that a lot of people don't think about is in your kit, carry a wilderness first aid book. But I know how to use the kit, yes, but that's the problem, is that you may be the one that's going to be unconscious, and now you have a big kit that nobody knows how to use. So I carry cards inside my kits or a book to, if somebody would grab that book, that kit, how to use it. And so those cards came with a book that I bought, and it's how to access somebody and things like that. And I got other cards for emergencies and first aid, and so that's what lives in my first aid kit. Because again, somebody may have to use this kit on you, and you may be unconscious and not able to give them how to use this, and it would be a shame that basically you suffer from having an emergency and nobody's like able to help you, and with this beautiful kit that you put together. Um, Carry a bunch of medication. I really like those little containers of medication. They're a little bit more expensive, but it's just great for kits like this. And I used to carry as well, like those ones that are kind of in papers and already pre-made. The problem was that they're for where I live, they're hard to order in and stuff, and it costs a lot. Versus those ones I can find at the dollar store or all over the place. They're a little bit more expensive than regular medication, but the container itself is great. So the medication that I carry is Tylenol, Advil, and Reactin. And one of the reasons for Reactin is that if you have an allergic reaction, Reactin can be used for those, especially the extra strength. And the advantage of this versus Benadryl is that there's no you don't get drowsy. And so, for example, if I'm having an allergic reaction and somebody has to kayak out, if I give them something, they're gonna feel sleepy. Then they're a little bit dangerous to get out of the situation. Versus Reactin, they wouldn't be able. They would be able to do that. So that's why I carry the Reactin. And also, I was mentioning before, I carry an Epipen in my other kit for a reaction like this. For what I do, because Epipen is not one that you have to change on a regular basis, but they come pretty expensive. Here in Canada, it's about $100. Get your family doctor when you see them to like, hey, could you put me an order for an EpiPen? And you explain to them why you want them, because maybe somebody you may have to respond and stuff. And again, it's a medication, and I'll put a link down below on some recommendation that the Wilderness Medical Society recommend for the EpiPen. But an advantage of having an EpiPen and having your family doctor prescribe. So first, you'll have a discussion with them on how to use it and why you should use it and things like that. But second is that now you can put that on your things like your Blue Cross and stuff. And so instead of, for example, for me, instead of $100, I think it comes down to $20 as my insurance pays half of it. So it becomes a little bit cheaper to have an EpiPen. It's always good to have something like this, because an allergic reaction in the middle of nowhere can be literally a life and death situation. So think about that. Again, because this kit is mainly for kayaking, I carry some extra tools. So I got like a knife. So that was my old one, and one of the reasons I retired, I don't know if you can see that, but actually here that's a little bit more. That's what seawater does to most of your tools on it. And so this one, because it was not titanium and all that, I had to retire from my PFD, because just by having that on my PFD was starting to show like a sign of wear. And then this one I think was $50. The one that is made in titanium for that was like 160 or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going that way. So I found another knife anyway. But because I retired this one, I put it in my bag, because now I may have to cut ropes or things like that. Or so this one has like multi oxygen tank and different purpose for rescue. So that I decided to put it back in case that I need to and then I retired also my other PFD light, and so I put a light inside the kit. So if I wash around or I leave someone over there, they can be easily identified by putting that light out somewhere, and so that then if they're on a side of an island or something before I go to get some help, they can now put their lights and not having to use their PFD. And so I put the extra lights in there for that purpose. And then I was talking a little bit about that in the other video, but because this time we're going to talk about wound care a little bit more. Um, this is the two sides of the coat band that I have. So I have the bigger one and the smaller one for like things like fingers, toes, and this one more for bigger wounds. Um, with those ones, and actually it started to happen a little bit with those ones, be careful when you put them in your first aid kit. Uh, so when you put them, do a little fold on them because so as you can see here, I have a little fold, and um, that way, because you see if they get compressed, it's the material that they're made of. It can do with this one. I didn't have a chance to do. It's harder to find an end now, and it's almost like one big chunk of stuff. And when you're trying to use it, it will be. And then what you have to do is almost like cut part of it to cut, and it becomes a pain. So every time that you put back tapes and stuff, and especially when you're going to work with gloves, which most of the time you're going to work with when you have like wounds and stuff like that. Having little tabs like this, they're easier to grab with your gloves and with tapes or things like that. And all you have to do is basically when you close your tape, put the little tab like this and put your tape back. And so now when I'm going to, you can grab it a little bit faster. So, and you can see like this on this one, there's almost like I may have to. Looks like I forgot to put a tab before I put it in the kit there, and it kind of got all in one smush. So I'll have to separate it and almost like cut a little layer and roll it up and stuff to stuff. So you're losing material and time as well trying to get it all on. So that was a good drop all the other thing too that I carry is a little flashlight and for eye exams and also like to have like things on you and things like that. I'll need to change the batteries on that one, but yeah, a little flashlight, and this one was a Letterman Monarch 200. But any little flashlight, you see it's very small and compact, so that's an advantage of having it small. And one thing also I put in my kits now is those MRE heaters. And why do I have MRE heaters on my kit? Well, first of all, I carry in the other part some bags that I kept in water in, so I could boil water with those kits because it would be used almost like the MRE is using. But the main reason they carry it is for hypothermia, and so especially in the environment where where I play, is in the ocean, and the water is very cold even in the summer. And so if we would have to take someone out, the person would be all wet and pretty cold. And so what I could do is put a little bit of water in it. And the heat that produces is pretty impressive. They're very easy and relatively cheap, and they're much better than those hand warmers. And so what I would do is put this on and then create some heat. But again, I could use the system itself, warm up some water if I want to give them tea and things like that. But the main thing that I want to use it for is create some heat. And then we were talking about glove, and here's the glove that I carry. And I'm going to talk about why I'm carrying those ones and not those ones in my kit. So this one is for a kit that I carry in my civilian, like everyday in the urban environments and stuff. Those gloves are dishwashing gloves. And the reason that I carry those ones is that even at work, because I work with those gloves kind of all the time, a lot of time I'll put them in, they tear up, or they like literally just even coming out of the box, there's a tear in them, there's a hole, or even had like I'm doing something and the glove almost like rip apart like Hulk on my hands out of nowhere. So if you only have the possibility at work, I got like boxes. So if one does that, I just go and reach another one and stuff. But still, again, if I'm doing a procedure and the glove rips, then I have to change them. So a lot of time when I'm in trauma room or something, or a position where I need to have glove and I know that they won't rip, I'll put harder glove. And the equivalent of those glove in the medical field is the sterile glove for when you do procedures and things. They're very rough. The problem with those gloves, though, is they're made of latex. So if you have anybody that has latex allergy, be careful about it, because if you touch them with those gloves, they may have like an allergic reaction to it. But the beauty with those gloves is that now I can clean them, I can reuse them. If you boil them, like in a little bag like this, you could kind of re-sterilize them. And so even if I'm out for multi-days and I have to do multi-stuff, just putting alcohol on them, they will, because again, they're like a dishwashing glove, which you're used to reuse and put in waters and things like that. They're very resistant, and they don't tear as easily, and you can reuse them and stuff like that. So this is why I carry those in my wilderness kit, because I may have to use a pair for multi-day, or and I put my trust more in a glove like this than a glove like this. If you want to be more, so if you are allergic to latex or things like that, and so that's the cheap version of it. You go to the dollar store, they're like $1 and stuff. But if you're allergic to latex, or you have somebody that knows allergic to latex, the other way that you could do and get the same system is buying those surgical glove, and some of them are non-latex, because obviously when they do surgery, they're latex free. So, and they have the same resistance of it and the same kind of bulk to them, and so that's a little bit better to use them. And if you have latex, then they have no latex in them. And then finally, we did have log talks on 21st century's dressing. That's my kit in there. As you noticed, I don't have any gauze anywhere. It's not so much anti-gauze that those dressings can serve me much better. I won't show them all, because either in a video here or there I talk about it, or I'll be doing more videos now also on wound care, which you'll hear like what I recommend and what I carry and stuff like this. But I got some Tegaderm Band-Aids, but the Band-Aids, those are the ones with hydrocolloid, so you'll find them as blister Band-Aid or Band-Aid with hydrocolloid. So those are the ones, a little bit more expensive but much resistant. Whole bunch of honey, and I talked about those in the past. Syringe for irrigation, a Mepitel border, a dressing called Tegaderm Absorbent, which is about this, and this is kind of a 3-in-1 dressing. So there's a kind of a Tegaderm Extra inside. There's a Mepitel, so it prevents from sticking to the wound, but there's a little cushion to it, so that there's a little bit more absorption. So those are great for if you get a road rash or things like that. Don't need to introduce those ones anymore. For those that follows me on channels, I have the Aquacel and the Aquacel AG, and actually on the AG. So that was the extra one. So there's some that are a little bit more absorbent than others. And one though that I would like to talk a little bit about before we close this video, and I'll put videos below. And I started to carry this, and actually I have like a little story about those, is Ktape. And the reason I use those as you can see, you can even buy, like, sometimes they'll be on sale and things like that. Like when I bought this one, I think it was like $10 instead of like or I think it was like 50% off or something like that. Yeah, it was super cheap. And you get a big roll, and so this is like part of a big roll, but you don't need like the whole roll, but you can have a roll to put in multiple uh, kit. I'll put a link down of a video on how to use those, but um, they're great for stabilizing in strains and stabilizing when you have pains and stuff. And my story is that I was hiking once, and somebody else, again, most of my kits is always used for somebody else, but um, twisted his ankle because he didn't have good boots, and he was in the middle of, like, it was a 6-day hiking, and where we were, it's on the ocean, so a lot of the it gets very wet, and so any dressing that would have put would kind of go through rough, like, we're walking in muds and water and rough terrain as rock, because you were walking on the side of a beach, so very wobbly rocks and stuff. And I put in them on day one because that's when he twisted his ankle, and day 3 or 4 you were still having the same pair, and that's despite like going through muds and stuff, and the outside looked disgusting, but they were holding up. So they don't seem like much, but so far, like that experience that I had really proved me that they have their purpose. They're not that big, and like I said, I'll put a video. There's a whole bunch of videos on how to apply them for a different purpose. So you can use them for shoulder, for elbows, anything that needs a support, like an extra tendon. So in this case was a ankle that got twisted, and so you had like instability in there. It didn't fracture it, but you had a strain on it. So they're great, and again, like they don't take a lot of space. So I carry that in my kit, and I'll put a link down below. So yeah, so that was my wilderness kit that I carry with me uh, in either kayaking or so. And it's more like, again, an expedition. Do you have to have all the stuff that I have? No. But if you have kind of in charge of a group, you kind of, because this is for like serious things where you may have to be like, there's place now when I go kayaking, there's not even cellular communications or anything, and there's not even fresh water. We have to bring our own water because it's like a little island or a little bunch of rocks basically floating on the ocean, and you're stuck there. And so if something happened, you're pretty far from care. I may take a little while, maybe a day or two, before even like rescue happens or things like that. So that's why I have the kit that I have. But it's pretty complete. Like, I can take care of almost any emergency, plus the knowledge that I have over here. But any big emergencies, I could monitor in long-term care too, which a lot of the first aid kit don't think about, in my opinion. So, for example, like rehydration or urine. So if you have somebody who's unconscious, they're gonna pee, they're gonna poop, they're gonna do stuff. So you need to be able to think about that a little bit more, and how you're going to control that. Because, for example, if I pee and I'm in my sleeping bag, it's because I'm trying to keep them warm. Now they're going to wet their inside their sleeping bag or wet their cell, and now they're cold. So now the hypothermia that I was trying to prevent, I just lost the gear that I was using for that. So if I can put this, for example, a Foley or a condom, and divert the urine outside the sleeping bag, I can keep them in a sleeping bag. They can still monitor their urine, but at least now I can keep them warm without having to open up all the time. And even if they're unconscious, now I can monitor their urine outputs and stuff. So it's an important skills and things that a lot of people in their wilderness kit don't think about. But it's and as you can see, it's feasible, and see, like, that's the kit. So it's not, it doesn't have to be that big. There's a little bit of improvisation when you're using a kit like this, but still not that much. Like, I'm carrying things that are not that expensive and stuff like that. So anyway, if you have any question, leave it behind below, and I'll talk to you soon.